I had this belief system of make hay while the sun shines. This deep down belief was, I better make this money now because one day I might lose it. It's not going to be here for long. In 2000, I was giving a presentation in the office and I collapsed and had a heart attack. If I've actually gone through that pattern, it kind of always worked out, right? The question, the answer, the plan, the work ethic. If I've not done that process, no, it doesn't work out. That's because I don't want it. The bank was about to take everything I'd worked for away from me. I had a choice, I either gave in or I could fight back.
Today's guest was homeless at 15 for 5 long years before one day, in total despair and desperation, someone stepped in his life and gave him the greatest gift of all, hope. Over the next decade, he became a master salesperson. He moved overseas, took a company from 5 million to $1 billion, then lost it all. He rebuilt. He was knighted for his charitable work. And then he lost it all again, and he rebuilt again. And now he's an actor and a movie producer, and his film, Legacy of Lies, has been in the Netflix top 10 for weeks. How did this man go from an unschooled homeless teenager to an author, a television host, an actor, an action movie producer, and a wildly successful entrepreneur? You have to hear this story. So please help me welcome to We Do Hard Things, Sir Marco Robinson. So I honestly, I'm going to be really, really frank with you. I have struggled to try and figure out how to start this conversation because I don't even know where to start, man. You've done so many different things. You have been very open between acting, between writing, between moving to Malaysia and being a salesperson and growing a business and having a TV show in the UK, and your childhood and where you come from. I mean, when you think of doing hard things, I usually end with this question, but when you think of doing hard things, what comes to mind first for you?
Wow, it's a great question. Well, if it's hard, it's worth it. I think the sense of achievement when something is really hard is, I think, one of the most gratifying things you can do in your life. If you've got a goal, you know it's going to be hard, and it's the adversity to get there is incredibly difficult. I think kind of navigating your way through that is something that definitely makes you stronger, definitely makes you learn about yourself, and gives you that great sense of achievement that you don't really think is possible if you're doing easy things, you know?
Yeah. So when I went through your story and tried to learn as much as I could about you, I mean, there was one thing that just got me, man. You mentioned in your story that your stepfather, so your parents were separated when you were very young, but eventually, I guess your mom remarried and your stepfather was bipolar. So my mom remarried. My stepfather had the manic side of bipolar without the depression side. He wouldn't take medication. I grew up in a very, very pressure cooker type home. And I left when I was 16 and you left when you were 15. And I just think, I mean, that is just one little tiny part of a lot of things that you faced. But I mean, being a young man, being a young boy in that type of environment, and then choosing to run away and leave. You know, I told my mom, I don't even remember saying this. She tells me that I said this, that I approached her and I said, I can't live here anymore. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but I can no longer live here. Yeah. And so I have to leave. Was that a big turning point for you in that time? You know, the idea of freedom and getting out, and I know it was hard, but
I think it was and it wasn't. It was because it was physically removing myself from that habitat, but also it wasn't because it was accumulating in my mind for years. So it was actually a very easy decision. It was just the right time. You know, I couldn't leave when I was younger because, of course, it would be dangerous. I was a juvenile and all that kind of stuff. But by the time that my mum left my stepdad, I didn't want to stay with my stepdad. I mean, I wanted to get out of there. So, and I wanted her to be happy because she hadn't really been happy in a relationship. And now when she left him, she's with the same guy now today. That's like, I don't know, 35, 38 years. So, you know, that was the right decision for her. And it was the right decision for me to do that.
Hmm. Hmm. And so walk me through the next few years for you as a young man. So you leave at 15. Where do you go? What do you do? What do you face?
I left at 15. I obviously in America you say no high school diploma, right? I had nothing with me. So I just worked odd jobs. I mean, stacking shelves in supermarket, cleaning floors, cleaning windows, anything I could get. And that wasn't enough to pay to get my own place. So I had to sleep on people's couches, cars, garages, parks, really wherever I could get. Sometimes it would be a month, sometimes I'd have to move, but it was very transient. I have to move all around all the time. And then I did that for quite a lot of years. I mean, I did that for I don't know, maybe 4 years. And then I got a full-time job in retail, just about afforded the rent, but I hated it. And when I was 21, I said, well, actually, the story was that it was in a clothes shop, a very expensive men's clothes shop. And I was like 18, worked there for 2 years. And I took the guy's job that left. And the guy that left came back 2 years later. I said, Marco, do you want to work in direct sales and make a lot more money? There's no salary, but you're going to make a lot more money. And you'd be able to leave your hometown and come and work in the big city. I said, and again, I was ready. I said, you know what? Let's do it. So I went to.
But before you move on, sorry, real quick, those 5 years, because I'm curious about it. I don't speak to too many people who have had those types of times. But when you were living transient lifestyle for 4 years, from couch to couch and barely getting by and all of this stuff, were you happy? Or because I found during that time the future scary, my hopes and dreams unachievable. Time seemed to just like years dragged by, or it's just 19, 20, 21. Like, when will life begin? When? And just, I didn't believe myself, and I'm not sure if you did, but I didn't believe myself that like 25 would somehow be better, or 30 was somehow possible. It's just very short window, not a ton of hope that all of these things I was hoping would work out would somehow happen.
Yeah, I mean, in those times, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't, like you said, I didn't believe I could make it more than what I had. I didn't believe I would be ultra successful, but I wanted to be ultra successful. So, I would retreat in my imagination as much as possible, because that was the safest place for me. In my imagination, and anything was literally possible. But in real life, it was different. It was bloody hard work. And it was really survival. It wasn't thriving, it was surviving. That was the difference. So every time I went through that process again and again and again, I didn't have anyone there. It was me on my own. There was no one I could go to and say, what the hell am I going to do now? What should I do? Kind of thing. So I didn't have a guide in those years. I was lost. And because I was lost, the people hanging around with me were making the same kind of money as me. There was no kind of role model. There was no aspirational figure there. It was me against the world, because, you got to pay your bills. So that's what that time was about. And you're right. It didn't go fast. It felt like forever.
It feels like a lifetime, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And so this person comes along and offers you, hey, commission, you take the risk, but you get the rewards, right?
Yeah, and of course, everyone said, oh, don't, it's commission only, it's bad, and you never get paid and all that kind of thing. But I just had enough, and I've had enough of living in that town, of that particular town. So I thought, I need to get out of here. And it was a risk I wanted to take, because I just couldn't stand it. The pain was too great where I was. So I took the job, and I was the worst salesperson in that company. Like, so bad. I mean, and it was selling something called timeshare. I'm sure you heard of that, where it was like $10,000, and it was in Spain, and you couldn't see it. It was intangible. And I had to spend 3 hours with people explaining it. And I was so insecure in my own self because of my traumatic childhood, because I was very, very introvert and shy, and because I didn't believe in myself. So, the clients just kept coming through, and I believed the clients. I didn't believe me. I believed the clients' excuses. I didn't believe me. I believed their objections of why they shouldn't buy it. So I did that for like 5 weeks, and my boss said, "Listen, if you don't sell in the next few days, you're not going to have a job."
Right.
So it was like my question, my internal narrative was when I was walking home, because it was 5 miles to get to that office from that place I stayed in. When I was walking home, it was like, why am I doing this? Why am I such a loser? Why am I not succeeding? Right? Mm-hmm. It was like those loop questions that you get answered, but you said, well, because you're not doing the right thing. So those questions never got answered, and it was like a circle, a loop that never stopped. And then when the boss said, you're going to get fired in 2 days, that kind of hit me more significantly because, again, I was ready. I was sick of failing. I was just sick to death of failing. I was sick to death of losing. I was sick to death of scarcity. And that was my life. It was scarcity until I was 21. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get fired in 2 days. There's no money. There's no food in the cupboard. What am I going to do? So I decided to change the question in my mind from why am I such a loser to how can I be successful? And I started asking it just again and again, repeat. To home and to work, like every day for 2 days. Everything I had in my mind was that question. And
where did that question come from?
I don't know where it came from. I think the boss triggered into me something. Well, you're gonna lose again, Marco.
Yeah.
Me, I'm gonna lose again. Do we really want to lose again, or do I want to change the script?
Yeah, and that's interesting because most. I would love to be able to figure out, and I'm sure everyone would. I went through my own health transformation 3 years ago. I lost 50 pounds. I'm now getting really, really aggressive. I know you've done amazing things with your own health. But there was for some reason why that time 3 years ago, enough was enough.
Yeah.
And in business, in mindset, in relationships, there's certain times where enough is just enough. I wish we could help figure out when enough is enough for people, because then we can help push them. But it's interesting to me because I think most people in that situation would have heard the boss and say, yep, just further proof that I'm an idiot or that I can't do this. Further proof. Further
validation that you're in the wrong job and doing the wrong thing, right?
That you can't do it. You don't have it. You don't have what it takes. You don't have you don't have the background. You don't have the connections. You don't have the education. Like the list could be very long for you. And that's in that case.
It was. And what really also sealed the deal for me in terms of changing the question was I didn't want to go back to that kind of scarcity in my old town where I was working in all these jobs and having no money. I didn't want that anymore. And that was the turning point. So, and he saying I'm going to get fired was, well, hang on a minute. Let's just see let's see if I just change something, I can change the outcome. So I asked that question. I didn't know where it was going. I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to succeed. It was like a call to action. That it was the desperation with the layer of icing. You're going to lose your job as the trigger. So I went into the office the following day, and the top salesperson who I revered, everybody revered, he came up to me and he said, listen, Marco, I know what's going on. I know you think you're going to get fired in a couple of days and everything's, you're a loser. I used to be like you. I said, what do you mean you used to be like me? He said, listen, I was homeless. I had no money. I had no prospects. I left school at 15. I said, no way. I said, yes way. That used to be me. In fact, when I started in this job, I was like you. I was rubbish. I was so bad. But something happened in me and I changed my life because someone gave me a book and they were the top salesperson. And they said to me, if it changes you and your result, pay it forward and give that book to someone who really needs it. And he told me this story. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this book that I read that changed my life. And I want you to go home and don't tell anybody you're reading it. Just go home and read it until you get the message. So I had no other choice than to go home and read the book. So I ran home. I read the book 8 times.
What was the book?
Night. The book was called Bring Out the Magic in Your Mind. It was written in 1957 by an English magician called Al Quran. And it was about the power of belief and how to harness it. And it was the right book at the right time. It was actually the first book I ever read from cover to cover because I really needed to get this message, And because he gave it me, it was like he was my guide. So he had, to me, he had the answers because he got the results. So I thought, well, this guy's doing it. If he's saying the answer's in this book, I better read it, right? So read the book 8 times, didn't go to sleep, ran, literally sprinted to the office with an unbelievable belief in me I'd never had before. It's like, you've probably experienced this. It's like you've got it's like electricity's running through you. Yeah. And you've got goosebumps all over your body and you feel, what just happened to me? And it was the first time, literally, I thought, wow, I'm in control of this. I can do this. So I ran to the office, sprinted. I got there and I was so sweaty. My clothes were wet through with sweat. And they said, you can't come in, Mark. You're too sweaty. You've got to go home and get changed. I had to go home and get changed, right? Now, what happened was then is the couple of people saw me and said, listen, don't worry, we're going to give you a lift back home because you seem a bit different today. And I think, let's give you a lift. Let's help you out here. So the first time I actually got assistance. They took me home and got changed, went back to the office. And I was waiting for my clients, for the first time ever. Before I was dreading meeting any prospect. This time, I didn't give who they were, what the background was. I didn't care. I just wanted them come on,
Yeah, you're ready.
So they came in and it was a couple. He was blind, she was blind, and they had a guide dog. And they sat down. And I'm thinking to myself, my old self's thinking, how am I going to sell timeshare to these guys when they can't even see me, let alone the timeshare? So that was the negative side coming in. But then the new one kicked in and said, oh, hang on a minute. I stood up, they were sat down and said, right, you're going to sit there for 6 hours. You're going to listen to what I'm saying. You're going to get your credit card out there and you're going to spend $10,000 and you're going to give me a big hug after and thank me and say it's the best thing we've ever done. And they said, no, we're not. We want to go. We don't believe it. It's rubbish. It's a big scam, blah, blah, blah. So it was a battle for it turned into a 7-hour battle.
7 hours?
Yeah, it was a long time. It was a long presentation. I mean, normally the presentation in timeshare is between 4 and 5. 4 and 5 hours to get normally a sale. That was what the average time was. But because they were battling with me all the time and I was with this new belief system, it was like I didn't care what they said to me. In fact, the more resistance they gave me, the harder I would fight. It was like it tested my belief, but my belief was like bulletproof that day. So anyway, 7 hours later, he turned to his wife, put his hand on his wife and said, Marco, I never thought I'd say this, but you were right. There's my credit card. This is the best thing we've ever done. We love it. We loved it. With
trembling hands, I'm sure you held that precious credit.
I was shaking, man. I was shaking. And I said to them, I was like, what just happened? And I'm going, holy. And without even thinking, I said to them, my reaction was, why did you buy from me? And they went, this is your first sale? I said, yeah, it's my first sale. They said, it's your first sale ever? I said, yeah, ever. And they started laughing and we were giggling in fits of laughter for 20 minutes. And eventually when we calmed down, he said, listen, the reason we bought from you is because although we couldn't see you, you transferred your belief to us and we absolutely loved it. And when he said, you transferred your belief to us, that was extremely pivotal. That was one of the magical moments in my life where everything changed. Everything. And I learned that the power of belief was what was going to get me through life.
Now, I don't know why I have to ask this question, but I do. That sales rep, the number one sales rep, who was just like you, who left home at 15, who has this book, who hands you the book, is that all true, or did he make that up just because he saw you and he knew you needed some help?
I never knew to that day if it was true or not.
Okay.
He told me it was true. He told me.
But he's also a great salesperson, so you never know, right?
But, I believed it because I needed something to believe in.
Yeah.
I needed a story to believe in, and that really, it became, the way he did it, it was very meaningful to me. It was just the right time, And I didn't care who said it or what was happening. He was the top salesperson. I didn't give what came out of his mouth. He was helping me. And it was the first time anyone in my life of success had actually talk to me, never mind help me.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, do you think, if you think about that period, do you think this bolder version of you, who's going to do whatever you have to do, it's not the like, why am I such a loser?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be successful. Was that the truer version of you when you were kind of just shaking off your childhood, shaking off the previous version of you, and you were just unlocking something within that was always there? Or was this a new thing? Was this a brand new thing that you were able to learn and pick up?
I think it was the first thing, what you said. It was definitely unlocking something, because as a kid, I always had these dreams of going to like the Far East, like going to America, of traveling. I'd run away from home all the time. So I knew that I was different to everybody else. I knew there was something, I just didn't know what it was. So when I found the key and unlocked all this kind of incredible world that I wanted to be in, that was really what set me off, because it was like a pressure cooker. And I undid the pressure cooker and I went and flew. Yeah.
Mm. And so from there, I mean, you have a pretty remarkable sales career. So if that is pivotal point number one,
yeah,
where next in our story?
Well, then I became the opposite of what I was before. Instead of being extremely unsuccessful, I became extremely successful. So I became salesperson of the year. I was the youngest sales manager at 23 in the entire group of companies. You know, all the other sales managers were like 35, 40. I closed more deals than any other person in the company. I got offered jobs literally all over the world. I got headhunted from all over the world. And eventually, a company in Malaysia called Tanko Resorts basically approached me and said, listen, we'd love you to come over and completely change this company and put in place your strategies and turn this company around into something that, because it was a public company, but it was failing. Mm-hmm. And me loving a challenge, I dreamed about the Far East. I thought, why not? So I went to the Far East.
Yeah. So you went to Malaysia. The company was what, 5 million at the time, and yeah, you were able to build it to $1 billion company.
You did 5 million in that year when I first went. And it was just a mess. I mean, it was just a mess.
Now, how was that though? Because I got to imagine that you're riding win after win. I mean, you're in sales, so you're used to hearing no's, but you're riding win after win after win after win. Do you get off the plane, you find yourself in Malaysia, you know, the lifestyle, the dream, the beach, the like, is calling you, and then suddenly you're like, what did I just sign up for? Or did you just like attack it head on?
But because I had a track record, they were paying me a lot of money and a consultation fee. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, you know, they were paying me like, I think, £15,000 a week or something like that. Right. So for me, it was like, wow, okay, no risk to take the family. And then 3 months after I was there, the Asian economic crisis came in 1997, where George Soros was the instigator. And it was a property timeshare company. Basically, people stopped buying their products overnight, literally it's like a pandemic financially. Mm-hmm. And eventually they said, listen, Marco, we can't pay you anymore because we're not getting any more sales in, you know? So I'm thinking to myself, I kind of traveled back to when I was 21 again and thinking, you know?
Yeah.
But the difference was I was starting from experience, and it's a cliche, but I had the experience to know, well, I said, right, okay, guys. I said, I got a choice. I can go back or go to another company, or I can turn this around, even during this time, but you've got to give me full control. That was my condition. So what I did is I completely innovated their product. So instead of having a 7-day timeshare week for $10,000, I was the first person in the world to make a points-based system. So that people could buy like 1 day's worth of points, which is 7 times cheaper than a normal timeshare week. So I made it affordable to the market. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And when I made it affordable to the market, And because they had a lot of property, I was able to give free holidays on all their properties to get people to come in for a presentation. So it was kind of like they didn't realize all these resources they had.
Yeah, they were sitting on empty rooms that could be filled, because you have all the carrying costs. I mean, and the operating costs, whether they're filled or not. You might as well get people in as a loss leader to get them to buy.
Exactly. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we adopted that marketing strategy, and it started working. And at one point, I was bringing in about 7,000 sales a month. It was unbelievable. I had 2,000 salespeople. I had about 1,000 telemarketers. It was insane. It was a beast. It was a monster. And, it was bringing a lot of, and it went into $1 billion company. Now, the people that owned that company started to get greedy and saw all this money. And my partner at that time, who brought me into this opportunity, he was based in England, and he decided that he wanted to put his wife in my position. So that was very political at the time. And then in 2000, I was giving a presentation in the office, and I collapsed and had a heart attack. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't know what was going on. So I was rushed to hospital. They said it's a very serious stress, because literally I was Mr. Success. I used to call me Mr. Successful, but because I was working 18 hours a day, I was just like on it all the time. I mean, there was no rest. And because I was on it like that, I was sacrificing my personal life. I mean, my family was not really I wasn't seeing them. It wasn't a balance.
You were young. You're young to have a heart attack, man.
Yeah, I was 31. So had the heart attack, and then came out of hospital, and I found out my wife was having an affair with my best friend. That was more painful than the heart attack, because I'd known those people 10 years each. That was the worst double betrayal I ever had. And it was like I didn't recognize those people anymore. And I was again lost. I was in this situation where I was so successful, but emotionally I was in a mess, in the biggest mess I've ever been in, even worse than being homeless, because it was the betrayal that really killed me.
Yeah.
And that took a long time to overcome, a long time. And the biggest mistake I made was actually going back to my wife. She asked me to go back eventually. And I went back because of the children, because I didn't have a dad, so to speak, and I didn't want them to be in that position. So I went back. But because of what happened, I didn't trust my wife. So it became a functional marriage, but not a love marriage, if you know what I mean. It was for the kids. And I stayed 7 years too long after that. Now, before that happened, so just after this happened, I'd been buying shares in the company that I was working for, because they were doing like a share release. And, they did a really good job of selling it. And I bought all these shares. I spent about $3 million. And the shares went from $3 to 10 cents in about 18 months. So I lost most of my money in that company, because I didn't know what I was doing.
So what year is this? As you're getting pushed, you get pushed out of a business.
This is 2000, 2001.
2000, 2001. So you're pushed out of a business.
Yeah.
You have a heart attack due to stress. You find out that your wife is having an affair, and you lose your best friend in the process.
Yeah.
And you're in the process of going broke.
Yeah.
That's not a great time.
It's not a great time. And it's amazing that, people think that successful people have this like smooth line, but actually it's a scaling thing. So you can be really successful and you can lose everything because you don't have the skills to keep it or know what you're doing with that money. I had no idea how to invest money. So I lost it because I got all this money, let's spend it. That's what you do, because I didn't have that kind of money ever before, kind of thing. But one thing I did have, the realization then, the pivot then is that I didn't want to work for anybody ever again after that. I didn't want to have a boss after that. And it didn't even matter there was no money, because I knew I could make money back. I just didn't want to be a slave. I didn't want someone else to control my destiny. I wanted it to be in my hands. And that was a huge realization. And that was at 31.
In the period of growth, let's say the period of rapid growth. So from, being the salesperson of the year and the manager of the year and all of this stuff, to going to Malaysia and building the company, having 2,000 salespeople and all of this stuff, were there not inklings of the old version of you that you had to push back and suppress? Or did you manage to allow success and win after win after win to build up and put on this believing, achieving monster of a man that you become?
Well, it's like Gary V, who I love to bits. I mean, he said, he was asked a question, how do you do it? He said, because I'm spending all my time executing. I don't have time to reflect. I just execute.
Right.
So then it was just execute. There was no time to kind of look out the window and going, am I doing the right thing spiritually?
Yeah. What's interesting? I always say that emotion is a luxury. Like if you are fighting for survival, fighting to eat, fighting to grow, fighting to do these things, you don't have time to get down because there's just no time, right?
Because it was growing so fast and you wanted more of it. Now, the one mindset I will reflect and answer that, because it's quite important, this is I had this belief system of make hay while the sun shines. Mm-hmm. Because the mind is a 2 million year old brain built to survive. So, of course, this deep down belief was, I better make this money now because one day I might lose it. It's not going to be here for long. So that's actually a scarcity mindset. But that also drove me to execute as I did. I just didn't know how to be inspired to go to the next level because I always believed there was a limit when actually there is no limit. The only limit is the tools you have are not made to go to the next level. You know what I mean? So that was the difference.
So you were actioning and operating out of you have a fixed window of time. You only have so much luck, so much skill, so much time, scarcity. I better do this while I can because it's all going to slip between my fingers anyway, right?
That was the mindset because I used to say, my wife said, well, you're never home. So I've got to do this now. If we don't do it, we're not going to have any money for our marriage and life and stuff like that. So that was my mindset. Yeah.
And so you decide 2001, I'm not going to give my effort to build someone else's business. I'm going to build my own.
Yeah.
And is so again, you've written books, you've been a TV presenter, you've moved into the film industry and become an actor. I mean, I can't even list half of the stuff that you've done. Is that the starting point of you just saying, I'm going to pursue the things that matter most to me?
I think that was the starting point because, I realized that, I had a family, I had responsibilities, I had bills to pay. And the hardest thing at that time was the marriage because she was not, if I took a risk, she would say that's too risky. Mm-hmm. So I was like kind of held back from going for it to protect my family and protect the private school fees and the lifestyle and all this kind of stuff, which she wanted. She wanted the expatriate lifestyle. But of course, to get that expatriate lifestyle, if you don't work for a big company, is really difficult. You have to really hustle. And I remember having I was doing consultancy work, I was doing my own seminars and events, and eventually I was in Malaysia. I'm not Malaysian, and if you're not Malaysian, if you've got your own company there, it's not easy because you're down the pecking order. Yeah, they look after their own more than foreigners, big time. So it's a lot harder there to get things done. It's cheaper, but it's a lot harder in terms of getting government approvals and stuff like this. So that was tough. And I did that. It was very hard. And I did that for I would say 5 years.
So in that time, because this is something that I don't think people often speak about, is the importance of not only your spouse, but the people around you to support what you do. So do you think, so you said you say they're 7 years too long. And I think we hold on to relationships way longer than many of us should, because in the end, it all goes to shit anyway, it seems sometimes. And what were you avoiding? You have this mediocre thing just so that way it can end anyway. Why not just call it a day when you need to? But it's really hard. It's you had all the rational reasons why you should have stayed. If you looking back, do you think you made the right choices at that time?
No, I didn't, because you see, we have these constructs in our culture that let's get a house with a white picket fence and protect it at all costs. But that construct basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Sabotages what you really want to do by protecting what you don't really need.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And I was there in that marriage in Malaysia, and we were living in this big house. I couldn't afford paying these school fees that I couldn't afford at the time because I wasn't bringing enough money in. But she wouldn't let me take the kids out of private school. She had to have those children in private school. It was all about image. It was all about the image of success with this family. We've got this, we've got that. It wasn't about, well, I'll tell you one thing that I remember just now, which is really powerful. We had to move to a smaller house from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom house because of the money. And she was reluctant. And I remember going to this house, and she was in the car, and she started crying. And I said, "What are you crying for?" So I don't want to move to a smaller house. Not right. I don't want to move. So she wouldn't give up the image to look after the family. It was all about the image. And that for me was when I said to myself, this marriage is toxic, get out. Mm. And literally, after that happened to me in the car with her, I said, I need to get out of this marriage. So my question changed to, how can I make $1 million this year?
Because that $1 million would equal freedom, or?
Yes, that was the freedom ticket for me, because that would allow me to get out of the marriage, look after the kids, and be doing what I wanted to do. So I kept asking this question.
I see a pattern here.
Again and again. Sorry?
I see a pattern here.
It's a pattern, right?
Yeah, it seems.
So I got this idea, and it came back to hotels. It came back to my experience because I had a lot of connections in hotels. And I reached out to some friends of mine and said, listen, because hotels don't use all of the rooms all of the time, you know that. And I knew that. And I said, listen, have you got any rooms that I could do an experiment with? Have you got any free rooms? If you give me some free rooms, I'll send some customers to you, and they'll spend money in the hotel on dinner and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, we'll help you out, no problem. So I did an experiment. I got off some free rooms. I packaged it into a vacation voucher, like a booklet, and I branded it, made it look really nice. And I started approaching companies and saying, listen, if you buy this vacation voucher, it's going to help you sell your products faster and easier, make more profit. Like you sell a car, you get a free vacation. Mm-hmm. So it was a concept. And my tagline was, I supply $2,000 holidays for $50 and boost your sales by 20%. So I'd go in with that line to business, chamber of commerce, stuff like that. And I would get tons of people coming after me. Yes, that's amazing. And then I started selling these vouchers to companies like IKEA, Shell, oil and gas, BMW, Mercedes. The list went on and on and on. And this was pretty amazing because I wasn't paying anything for the bloody product.
Yeah.
Right?
This is pretty amazing.
So I was paying for the design of the voucher. And when I was getting more rooms, I had to pay a little bit for the rooms, but I didn't have to pay for the rooms until the customer used them. But a lot of the customers forgot they had the voucher and didn't use it. Mm-hmm. So I would basically sell those vouchers in bulk. I'd sell like 1,000 vouchers. A minimum purchase would be like 1,000 vouchers, and they'd pay $50. It'd be like a $50,000 order. And my profit margin was like 90%.
And the claim rate, as you're saying, was low.
The breakage rate was low, like 10%.
Yeah. So
then my question was, how can I scale it? Because I was doing all the sales personally. I thought, how can I scale it? So
but I think this is really important. So you come up with this idea. You're going around to the chamber of commerce. You're going around to the businesses. You're selling. You're hustling. Yeah. I think we think of your story as this linear story. And I can now imagine, because I started my business in 2006. I was hitting BNI, I was hitting Chamber of Commerce's, I was hustling. You're meeting,
exactly.
you got your tie on and you're having your little breakfast crumpet or whatever.
It was like 5 a.m, right? These BNI meetings. Yeah.
And now people would look at you and they would never suspect. I don't think they would ever suspect that at that time you're out there hustling vouchers.
Yeah, and I was 40. I was 40, right? And I was doing exactly what
before that you were running a $1 billion company.
Yeah, 10 years before I was doing a $1 billion company, and I was 40 and broke.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I did the hustle, started selling the vouchers, and then I changed the business model. So I turned it into a business opportunity. So for $2,000, an entrepreneur could come in and buy an agency from me, and they had the right then to sell the vouchers to companies.
You franchised it out.
Franchised it.
Yeah.
And I signed up 2,000 agents in a year. So that company made about 10 million in 18 months. Now, at the same time, I left my wife, which was the best day of my life at that time, because as soon as I left her, it was like, oh my God, this weight just lifted off me and I was free. And also I wrote my first book within 3 months. It was called Close the Deal and Suddenly Grow Rich, based on the success I'd had in sales. It became a #1 bestseller. Mm-hmm. So this happened at the same time as making this money. And it was probably the best time of my life at that point. I'd never had that kind of success. But again, there was a pattern. And the pattern was, it was always about asking the right question and trusting you were going to get the answer. And trusting yourself is a huge part. Arnold Schwarzenegger says that in his 6 Rules of Success. First thing, trust yourself. And, I think a lot of us don't trust ourselves enough that if we ask the right question, we're going to get the right answer because we believe other people's. Mm-hmm. And you have to really trust yourself and realize that what you are capable of is unbelievable. My favorite quote is from Thomas Edison. If everybody did what they were capable of doing, they would astound themselves. So that's where I was at that time. Yeah.
And when you reflect on that time, when you reflect on all of your success, really, is it that you were just built for this and you would have been successful? People say about those, oh, that person would be successful here or there or whatever they do. Like, are you just built for this and it comes very naturally to you? Or did you have to build yourself into this?
I think it's a combination of the two. I always knew I wanted different things than the people in my hometown. I didn't want to have a 9-to-5 job. I didn't want to work in a factory I'd be dead. That would completely kill my mind. I had all this energy. I've always been very energetic. I just needed to channel it. And when I discovered that and channeled it, then the success that I craved started to happen. And yes, I did build myself because I'm a great believer in that learning is your greatest asset. But the key was to learn the right things to reach a goal. So in terms of mindset, I did Tony Robbins like crazy, did all the Tony Robbins stuff, did everything I could. And when I thought of an idea, I researched about that to make sure I knew exactly what the territory was. And then I went to execute. So yeah, it's two things. You build yourself in terms of your mindset. That's the trending word right now, a bulletproof mindset, but then the tools to actually get to that business in reality making money.
And so how did you then go on to be a television presenter? That seems like a very big shift.
That was a big shift because I didn't expect it. It wasn't planned. I mean, I'd always wanted to be on TV, but I didn't know what,
Why did you want to be on TV?
Well, since I was a kid, I'd always wanted to be, I'd always wanted to make films or be in films. And I think I'd always had that dream, but I didn't know, I hadn't really stopped and kind of like had the time to reflect, what do I really want to do in film? I'd never slowed down to kind of have the time to think about what I wanted to do in film. It was just a dream. So I got into real estate after the subprime. And when I had all this money in this business, I bought loads of US real estate. And then all my friends said, how do you do that? How do you buy a 50 grand house and then sell it for 100K? And how are you getting 20% rental return? So that became another business. And Channel 4, when I was promoting my second book, Channel 4 TV in the UK approached me and said, listen, Marco, we've heard about your life story. We think it's amazing. We're making this TV show called Get a House for Free. We want you to come on and basically do this show and give a house away to a homeless family and pay the mortgage off as a message to address the social housing issue, because very few people can afford to buy a house these days. And I said, really? You want to do that? They said, yeah. Would you be willing to do it? I said, yeah. Yeah. Would I love to do that? Because I was thinking, I'd like to make a statement. I'd like to showcase the people's struggle, because I used to be homeless. That was a big deal for me. It had a lot of meaning for me. And I knew my business mind kicked in and said, wow, imagine the PR, right? So it was a no-brainer. I just decided to do that very quickly and made the TV show.
And was there any aspect of moving from this dream of getting into television and then eventually film? Was it a challenge for you, or were you just so excited, so happy to be there? You know, there's some people who just show up and they're just happy to be there. And then there are other people who have to really seem to work just to show up. Did your excitement just carry you through, or were there some surprises along the way?
Well, in my life, whenever anything happens that's really kind of successful, I always am in disbelief at first. I can't, I'm like, is this really happening? It's like so exciting. I can't believe this is happening. Can't believe this. And it happens. And when we have this conversation, when I look back at these things, I'm going, did that really happen to me? Because I go back to my childhood and go, what the? Can you imagine? When I was 10 years old, I would imagine the things that would happen in my life. No way I would dream of that. But it happened. So, yeah, I mean, when I had the opportunity, I was super excited. I just loved the process. So, yeah, to answer that question. And was it hard work? It was hard work. I didn't realize the technicalities of film work and TV work, but it was a pleasure because the goal was there. I was being very grateful I was in that situation. And, because a lot of people would have kind of cut their arm off to be doing that.
Yeah.
So that was my thinking,
And so when you go through someone's LinkedIn or when you go through someone's bio, it's just win after win after win. Were there things along the way? Like, are there areas of your life or your career that you tried with excitement, with force, asking yourself the right question, and yet still fell well short of what you needed to do?
If I analyze it, probably not, because as we've discussed tonight, when I analyze those patterns, if I've actually gone through that pattern, it kind of always worked out. Right? The question, the answer, the plan, the work ethic. If I've not done that process, no, it doesn't work out. But that's because I don't want it.
And if you don't do the process, which of those four reflecting do you find you skip?
I think it's the work.
So you question, you solution, you have the answer, but then it's the actual. How much work does it take? How much work does it really take to be able to achieve some of the things you're achieving now? Because obviously we don't want to suggest that people work the type of hours you're working when at 31 you're having a heart attack, but it still takes a tremendous amount of effort to be able to drive things forward.
I went to, when I was writing my second book, I had massive writer's block, but I couldn't figure out why it wasn't flowing like the first book. So I went to see Brendan Bouchard and went to his private retreat, Brendan. And I only went, I played like 20 grand, right? I only went to ask one question: why can't I finish this book, right? And that was the one question I only had of Brendan. And we sat down in this like mansion in LA and we're having a good time. And then he turns around to me and says, I know your question. And he said, the reason you can't finish your second book is because you have forgotten the struggle it took to write the first book. And that's why it became such a good book. Now, when he said that to me, that was like, oh my God. That was like a mic drop, because that's exactly the answer I needed, because I realized I wasn't really working on the book as I did the first book. I wasn't like disciplining myself to write every day. I wasn't putting the mind, the brain cells in there. I wasn't putting the energy towards it. And I realized that wasn't happening for me. So I became very kind of like in a comfort zone. I took it for granted that I would write a good second book, and it didn't happen that way. So I remembered the first book, and then after that answer, I finished the second book. So that kind of answers what you were talking about before.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so as you move on, I mean, you're running a national charity. You do a lot of things. But as we flash forward to, I mean, being in an action movie is pretty exciting, right? So the film comes out in 2020. I know that you're auditioning for more things yourself. In your 50s, I mean, it seems like such a strange time to be able to make a pivot like this. But now knowing that this is a childhood dream, what a remarkable thing. But how much of a readjustment was this, or is it just another chapter like every chapter you've taken?
Something happened. Something bad happened, and I'll tell you what happened. I haven't shared this with many people. In the last 4 years, I was in a massive litigation lawsuit. And what happened was, I used to be a property developer, as you know, and I got in business with my family, and we bought this apartment block of 51 units in Manchester for millions of pounds. And we got the keys. And when we got the keys, the outside fire protection wall started falling off the building. So you couldn't put any tenants in there. It was risky. It was a risk to their lives. And we thought it would be no problem, but it was a huge deal because the building inspector had signed off on a building that wasn't complete. It was a lot of errors there. There was a lot of building irregularities there. The whole building, put it that way. So I also found out my cousin, who I'd known all my life, was embezzling money out of my company at the same time. So I had to sue. We had to sue 8 people: building inspector, developer insurance, bank. I had to sue a bank, right? Insane, because they all wanted to protect their reputation and say, well, it's not our fault, you know. But actually, it was their fault. But it cost me the legal fees were just over £2 million. And they came after me because I gave a personal guarantee. So they came after my mum's house and everything that I had. And it was in fact, I was thinking of suicide at one point in the last few years, because the bank was about to take everything I'd worked for away from me. If I had a choice, I either gave in or I could fight back. And my money was running thin. I was getting into debt. So I decided to fight. I just basically dug deep, remembered who I was, and just fought the bank. And the bank did a smear. The bank were very ruthless, but they're also very dirty. And they did a lot of smear campaigns online about me and stuff like this. And they did this really horrible campaign because they knew that if they lost the case, they could lose the bank, because the reputation was on the line that a bank financed a building that wasn't safe for people to live in, you know. So there was a huge battle. It took a lot. It took everything I had to fight, and I won the battle eventually. In fact, it was 6 months ago. So that took a lot of energy, and it took a lot of time. It took a lot of resources. And I couldn't, because of that battle, I couldn't function in my career. I became a lawyer, you know? I became a lawyer, but I didn't want to be a lawyer. So what I needed to do something completely different that would balance out that lawsuit. So I said, I just left everything, stopped working, and I moved to London and went to acting school 2 years ago. Spent 6 months at acting school. I went at 51. Everyone else was 19. I thought, I don't care, right? And I had the best time of my life. It was amazing. I'm hanging out with these students, and at first they're going, wow, this guy's a bit older than we are. And then he realized, well, hang on a minute, because I thought I was too old. And they said, listen, you've got all this experience in life. You can act because you've had all this experience. So I realized, well, yes, I can, right? So I went to this acting school. Now, Legacy of Lies was a 7-year project that started in 2014 as a concept. And then it became more alive, more real as the years went by. But it was done really as a hobby. It wasn't done to make money. It was the only thing I did in my life that wasn't to make money. It was to fulfill a dream of being a spy, a James Bond, basically.
Yeah. And did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah. I mean, this is another story in itself. Have you heard of the Russian spy story?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So on my Clubhouse profile, it says, you may think you're cool, but have you slept with a Russian spy that was sent to kill you?
Okay. No, I have not heard that story. I have seen that reference though.
So what happened was I met this guy and we made this script it was based on a true story of how the Russians bombed a building in Ukraine and killed 300 families because the director's wife was Ukrainian and she lost someone in this bombing. And we spent 50 grand on it, did the PR. And then one day the director called me and said, listen, Marco, are you sitting down? I said, why? What's up? He said, sit down now. I need to tell you this. I said, what? He said, your picture, your Facebook, your Instagram is on Russian national news TV right now to 100 million people. And they're saying that you're crazy, accusing Putin of bombing this building, and you're going to get killed. I said, what? They're talking about? Didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I said, send the clip. So he sent the clip. I had it translated. And my face was on there, my Instagram. They were circling comments that I was making about the president. Oh my God, right? That was the only time in my life I've been truly afraid to lose my life. That was scary. So I was reflecting and going, oh my God, what am I going to do here? So after much reflection, we decided I'll come to that in a minute. Anyway, for about a year, unrelated as I thought, I was talking to a beautiful Russian girl on my Instagram account for about a year. And one day she said, can I come and stay with you? I said, yeah, sure, come and stay. So she came to stay. And our third day in bed, she said one morning, Marco, I don't think you should make that film. I said, why would you say that? She said, because I'm not who you think I am. I'm Russian FSB. I have been sent to watch you and observe you. Your phones are tapped. Your office phone is tapped. Your production office is tapped. And your personal phone is tapped. I sell weapons. My best-selling weapon is cyanide, and Putin is my cousin. So
you're not afraid to say this out loud right now?
No, I don't care now. It's all over.
Okay.
Because we didn't make that film.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Good.
So, of course, I'm in this situation now where I'm thinking, what is happening to me? Is this real? I didn't believe it. And she showed me the proof, and all the phones were tapped, we found out. And it was the most bizarre ever situation you can imagine. I mean, real life is far more exciting than films. You know? So I'm going and my kid said, Dad, don't make the film. So we had to basically bin the entire project, which cost quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Anyway, 6 months went by. The Russians disappeared. And me and Adrian said, listen, we want to make a film. So we wrote the spy thriller, fictional spy thriller, I say, called Legacy of Lies, right? Based loosely on the Russians and all this kind of stuff. So we wrote the script. We had very little money left. And I got together $12,000 and made the trailer for Legacy of Lies from A-roll and B-roll. So A-roll is where you film it yourself. B-roll, we booked some stock footage in and put it together. Mm-hmm. And I submitted that to the Ukraine Film Foundation, and we won a $1 million grant, first prize. And I didn't expect that. I'm like, that's amazing. Now, the condition was that to access the whole grant, we had to get an A-list actor into the film to influence the film and de-risk the entire project. Because I was going to be the lead. And Adrian said, well, do we want to make a bigger film? I said, yeah, let's make a bigger film. We've got this grant. Why not? So we looked around every actor you can possibly imagine, Bruce Willis, everyone, all the big names. They were $10 million, the cheapest one, and they were busy for 5 years. So even if you had the money, you couldn't get them. And then 2 years went by, and eventually, at the last minute, because the grant was going to expire, a guy called Scott Adkins dropped out of the film and loved the script we had in the trailer and signed on, but we had to find $100,000 to pay him there and then within a week.
Right.
So that was hustling like crazy, right? So we got the $100,000, we put it in escrow, which you have to do when you pay actors before the film's made. And Scott Adkins is arguably the best martial arts action film actor now in the world. His fighting skills are amazing. So we came on board and we started filming in Kiev in May 2019. Halfway through filming, we ran out of money. We couldn't pay the crew. So we thought, what are we going to do? So at the same time as that filming, the Cannes Film Festival was on. So we thought, yeah. We borrowed a friend of a friend of a friend's yacht.
There's a lot of moments in your life where you're like,
yeah. So because you don't change the goal, you change how you get it, right? So we borrowed a friend of a friend's yacht. We went to this yacht. We cut a new trailer. We invited all these film execs and investors, and we sold 6 regions for $300,000 each. We raised $1.8 million on that yacht. It was amazing. And we finished the film, right? Did the post-editing. Film was ready in January 2020, ready to go into 10,000 cinemas. Mm-hmm. And what happened?
Mm-hmm. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. It's going to wreck our ability to advertise this. Yes, there was something that happened in the spring of last year.
Yeah, something really major happened, right? But the point was we couldn't put the film in cinemas. So we'd raised like $6 million to make this film. And we needed to make money. So we couldn't do anything with it. And we had to put it on Amazon Prime in July last year, which Amazon Prime doesn't really make money. So we kept it back. And then in about a month ago, we sold the film to Netflix UK. And it went to number 4 in the first week, trended at number 4. It stayed there for like weeks. And I'm like looking at Netflix and going, oh my God, that's my film, Yeah. And all my friends and contacts are, Mark, it's number 4 on Netflix. What the fuck, man? So the feeling of seeing that film after all that struggle you've been through, it was probably the most satisfying moment of my life. Yeah.
I have this motto that just popped into my head that I try to tell myself, which is to make bold claims, do cool, and then back it up with action. And I think that represents you, man. Like really, you make these bold ideas, declarations. You do really cool, but then it's like as you said, like let's just figure out a way to make this happen. That's really inspiring to me because I just don't think I attack things as aggressively as you do, and I want to get better at that myself.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like that all the time, right? I mean, it's really dependent on how strong that vision is of what you want. I had to run through brick walls to make that film. I mean, literally brick walls, because I got refused funding. No one knew me, so many rejections. But I just wanted to do it, and nothing would ever stop me doing it, whatever happened. So I just kept running to that vision. I was in that film. And, what I can share with your viewers is is if you're not acting in it, you're not going to act on it. And that's really the takeaway from that. You've got to be in that vision inside your mind every day, living that moment as though it's already happened. And that's visualization for me has been a big part of my world since I was a kid, because as I was an only child, I was the guy at the back of the class looking out the window in my imagination, pretending to be James Bond. School was useless, had no meaning to me at all, because there was so much drama going on in my life. You know, my mum getting beat up and homelessness and God knows what. The only safe place I had where there was magic was my mind. And The Magic of Your Mind was the first book I ever read. So there you go.
It's remarkable. So the loss, okay. So we have the lawsuit that took almost everything out of you. Making this movie took almost everything out of you. As you face the next, I mean, I just can't help but foreshadow, sorry, you're about to have a few more of these, I think, in your future, because I'm seeing this pattern, these most remarkable things, these challenges, these fights. Have you figured out a way to like shorten the time window or get yourself more jazzed up to do something and attack things quicker? Or is it just that every few years, you know, there's this next focus, this next passion, this next project, this next battle?
It's a great question. And I think it's not a simple answer, because sometimes even when I was successful, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if that was what I really wanted to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I wanted it to achieve something, but it wasn't pulling me. It wasn't pulling me as a passion. And the only thing that really pulled me through all this time was film. And I realized I really wanted to be a filmmaker and actor. That was really what was pulling me, my whole DNA through this. Because I've done property. I've written number one best-selling books, done it. Run public company, done it. Done my own businesses, won Entrepreneur of the Year, done it, right? So I've done all those things. So for me, I don't want to be Entrepreneur of the Year again. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's not, because I've already checked the box. The bucket list is done for me.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about their first Ferrari as much more meaningful than their third.
Exactly. After the first, what's the point, really? So for me, it was really doing all those experimentations and having all that success was great. But really what I loved the most was actually being on a film set. When I was on a film set, it's just a magical place where you can be anything you want, anyone you want, and there's people supporting you in this imaginary world. It's weird. You're on a film set because being a great actor is about being a real in an imaginary situation. But when you've got other people supporting that not unreal world, it becomes magical because other people believe in it. Mm. So to answer that question is not a simple answer. It was, I've come to this stage where I think I've reached a belief system where I knew I could make a film. So then I pursued it before I didn't believe it.
Sir Marco really is someone who's faced and overcome the hard things. Okay, key takeaways for me. Number one, believe in yourself, even if you have absolutely no experience whatsoever, because this belief, this confidence will inspire others to believe in you. Number two, if you follow Sir Marco's 4-step pattern, you can achieve anything. So ask the question, find the answer, plan, and then have a solid work ethic. This pattern has worked for Marco countless times, and it can do the same for you. And number three, if you found great success in one area of life, don't be afraid to learn something new. It's never too late in life to change or to move on to the next thing. Remember, those of us who have something to prove, we can show the world and ourselves that we have what it takes to make it happen, because we do hard things. If you want more real, inspiring talks, you have to hear how this Hollywood dancer and fitness pro battled through 34 surgeries to save her leg from amputation and reclaim her life. Click on the link right over there.
Our mindset determines our world, really. What we tell ourselves, we start to believe, and what we believe, we start to create as our reality.